Perfect. Well, we'll get started. Thank you for coming to Market Where It Counts, how to successfully boost online giving in 2019. My name is Cameron Ripley. I'm the CEO and founder at Community Boost Consulting, which I'll tell you all a little bit more about. But I'm really excited to just talk digital marketing with you all, talk how it can impact your fundraising strategies, or if you're looking to drive program revenue more online. That's what we love and breathe and nerd out on every day for a lot of nonprofits that you guys know. But before I get into that whole spiel, I'd love to just go around the room, right? We all came here to network, meet each other. I'm sure some of you guys have met, but I'd love to hear, your name, your organization, what's your role, and what is your biggest marketing challenge? And we'll start on this side.
My name is Teresa Stivers. I'm the CEO of Walden Foster Care and Adoption. And I think our biggest challenge is that we've been around for over 40 years, but we've never had to fundraise before or market. So that's something that we're somewhat new to.
Perfect.
My name is Claire Grebner. I'm the Director of Development at Aldwood Gardens and Learning Center. And I would say our biggest challenge is just capacity. We don't have a designated, marketing person, and so it kind of falls on to, falls on to all of us. So that can be, I think that's our biggest struggle. It's consistency around that.
And resources, yeah.
Victoria Bonnet with Earth Discovery Institute. We do environmental ed with San Diego students, and I'm the education coordinator and / intern director. So just knowing how to market yourself, it's kind of tricky. So.
My name's Greg. I'm actually on the Community Boost team.
Perfect. We have a few of our team in here today. So.
I'm trustee of the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, and connecting with the next generation of donors is most important.
I'm Michelle Mallory. I'm board chair for Resounding Joy, which is an organization about music therapy. And finding new ways of marketing. Clearly, we did the galas. It's time to move on to other types of fundraising.
Yeah, we'll go up. Yeah.
Christine Scheffler. I'm Vice President of the San Diego World Affairs Council and the San Diego Peace Corps Association. And my primary focus right now is the World Affairs Council, and I feel like it's kind of stagnant in membership and in inclusion and diversity and all of this. So since I'm lucky enough to be Vice President, I'd like to bring in new blood kind of across the board, both for generating new membership, but also the board and the staff. So how best to social media.
My name is Jordan. I'm also with the Community Boost team, but I'm also a board member of a local nonprofit called Urban Surf for Kids. And I think our biggest challenge is also capacity and having everybody on the same page and the resources to do that.
Hello all, my name is Siobhan Diamond. I'm from UC San Diego Hillel. I'm in development, and I'm also on the capital campaign team. I think my biggest focus is how to stand out while still staying on brand. Just social media, we're having such an influx of just things that you can donate to online, so finding creative ways and methods to be able to stand out is important.
I'm Megan Land. I'm the Executive Director of Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, and our biggest challenge right now is that we have never marketed in the past, and we're a 27-year-old organization that was tied very closely to our founder who recently retired.
My name is Mary Duffy. I'm also with the Earth Discovery Institute. I'm the outreach and biologist coordinator for the organization, and I think our biggest problem is so many. We were an existing organization. We've been around for 15 years? Yeah. But we lost our executive director last year, and we're down to just us 2 employees, and we're trying to rebuild everything, but money. It's always money's the bottom line. Wow. Yeah.
Doug Metz, I'm Deputy Executive Director of a group called Rise Up Industries, and We are a social enterprise, actually operate 3, and we're for gang intervention, prevention, and currently only 3 years old in finding work and training previously incarcerated. And it was founded, say, 3 years ago, and an older group, the email group, so to speak, we need to broaden our appeal and marketing to the younger generation.
I'm Stephanie Kiesel. I'm the Executive Director of 0800, and we're a military transition support program for service members leaving active duty service and choosing to stay here in Southern California post-service. And we serve those who are transitioning, so those are our post 9/11 folks, and our post 9/11 folks are all digital. And so having a truly sophisticated digital campaign, not just for the recruitment of program participants, because to be frank, we're at capacity, but their peer groups are the ones who would oftentimes want to support our efforts on an individual contribution basis, especially when they've had a good transition experience and want to share that knowledge and support with their brothers in arms.
Hi, I'm Mary Earlemore. I'm financial background, CPA. Kind of surprised to be in a marketing type course there. One of the organizations I'm with as a board member wants to implement online giving, so I'm looking at it more from a financial standpoint. But there's still some resistance to, what will the members think of having to push a button online when a lot of them don't even have computers.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Start here.
I'm Gonzalo Garrett. I'm the chair of Lion Educational Foundation, and I'm more interested in engaging online donors in what is now a crowded hyper space and overloaded emails and political discourse and memes and all kinds of stuff. How do you make an impact to your potential donors?
Great. Well, we'll hit on that too.
I'm Ross Porter, the Executive Director of Spreckles Organ Society, a marketing dinosaur who wants to learn to fly. We need audiences at our, that's right. We need audiences at our free Sunday concerts in Balboa Park.
Okay.
Go for 1 hour at 2 p.m.
Got ideas already for you. Go ahead.
Great. I'm your neighbor. I'm Michael Remsen. I'm the recently installed CEO of the San Diego Youth Symphony and Conservatory Program. I think from a giving perspective and marketing, I think I'm most interested in looking at branding, that how our branding can speak to multiple constituencies, and we can use that, a consistent branding message, to help us create successful digital campaigns.
Interesting.
Yep. My name is Reagan.
I wanted to know.
My name is Reagan. I work at Community Boost as well. I'm our senior digital strategist, so my entire job is just coming up with digital marketing strategies. So I love doing all these problems.
Sue Greenway, I'm the board chair at San Diego Youth Symphony and Conservatory, so everything he said, but I think also we have the same challenge of getting people to audiences to our audiences.
Awesome.
I'm Bridget Strickland. I work at San Diego Habitat for Humanity, and I'm on the board of San Diego Women's Foundation. And as an organization that's had relative success in the online sphere, my biggest concern is actually measurement. Having just spent a lot of time trying to translate a really successful campaign for a corporate partner report, makes it is really long to try and get all the data.
Yes, more of the analytics front. Okay. Excellent. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing. You know, at the end of the day, I actually spoke at this symposium last year, and we had this big, beautiful PowerPoint, and we went through this full marketing funnel with lots of pictures and case studies. And yeah, it actually got really good reviews. They rate these sessions. But for me, I just knew that a very small percentage of that room actually made a lot of changes. And so I wanted to do something different and, you know, bring up more of the pain points and, you know, have something that can really spark that, whether it's, okay, we have to navigate the importance of this to our board, or we don't even know where to get started. So ultimately, I'm looking to map towards Q&A as fast as we can. But we've been in this for about 6 to 7 years. There's a lot that I've learned and kind of want to share some of those jumping off points. And also, it's always fun to talk about like what's happening in 2019, the main trends that we're seeing on the digital front, but again, really mapping towards Q&A ultimately is how I like to approach this type of session today. So for those who don't know who we are here at Community Boost, so we basically do digital marketing for nonprofits. We work with about over 90 organizations currently directly, from the Statue of Liberty to multiple United Ways to Days for Girls to locally we work with Jewish Family Service, San Diego Foundation, San Diego Blood Bank, International Community Foundation, Natural High, Planned Parenthood, many organizations. Wounded Warrior Homes, which we'll tell you about them a little bit on the ad grant front. So we've seen a lot, but that's what we do. We do nonprofit marketing. And, to start, I just want to talk about how I get really excited because digital marketing is what I love. I love trying to help nonprofits grow. And I believe that the internet and social media and all these tools that we're going to talk about, it really gives us the greatest opportunity we have ever had to directly connect with individuals and people and share with them our mission and like why we exist that the nonprofit sector has arguably ever seen. And it's a tremendous opportunity. Some organizations are really making that happen. But also, I think it's also one of the greatest risks for organizations that are not embracing technology and embracing the online front. And ultimately, I wish all the funding didn't go to where attention is. I wish it was only impact focused at times. But attention is really this currency. And what we do at Community Boost is we basically, we're not doing anything rocket science. Really, over the years, we've just monitored what has worked in the for-profit world. That's my background, is like digital marketing in the startup tech space. Monitor what's working there, and then make it cost-effective for nonprofits. And that's really ultimately what I want to talk about today, is like how we can use digital marketing to just market where people's attention is at. Right? As everyone was sitting in this room, I think almost every single one of us was looking at our phone, right? That's just where people's attention is at. It's online, it's on mobile, and we can navigate this. And our team, while sometimes we're a little younger, I promise you we're not rocket scientists, and these platforms, they ultimately want to make it easy, right? Especially when we talk about like the Google ad platform and things like that and how to get started. One thing before I forget, I'm talking a lot about like the why and strategy, and kind of to my point of I wanted to create a session and really support our community into action. We've decided that we're going to start running office hours once a month at the Community Boost offices. We're in Little Italy. These are free. It's on the second Friday at 2 p.m. for 2 hours. That's how we're trying to help people remember it. So second Friday, 2 p.m. We're starting in February, whatever that second Friday is. I think it's like the 8th or 4th. Excuse me. Let me see. The 8th. So that'll be the first one. We're going to have more information on our website. You can basically just bring your biggest marketing challenge, and then you can sit down with our client service team and work through that and how to get into action, or whatever that tactic is that we're looking to actually get off the ground. For us, it's not a sales tactic or anything like that. We're actually going to learn a lot too, right? We have our clients that are investing in us, and we're going really deep there. But it's really helpful for our team to just kind of connect. What are the pain points in getting started here? And we learn as much as you all do too. So let's get into it. One of the things I want to talk about here, we kind of hit on that donor relationship front, and the online world gives us this opportunity to really make our donors the heroes. And when we think about, we're going to use this term a lot here today called a marketing funnel. And the online world, ultimately, it's so cool because we can measure everything, right? Like you can't improve what you're not measuring. And that's why the online world is ultimately really cool once we get that down. But we talk a lot about this marketing funnel. And, you know, when online, we think our site, right? Like we're basically thinking visitors. This is new awareness. You know, people have never heard of our organization. And then we think, okay, you know, conversion. So this could be an email subscriber, following us on social media. They're somehow, you know, kind of opting in to caring what we're talking about, which really gives us this ability to kind of share our story, share our impact, share, you know, why we exist, share about our, you know, symphony programming. And then naturally, this is when we, you know, we're really starting to try and get that first transaction, right? That first gift, that first donation, that first ticket purchase, and kind of crossing that threshold. And then we're really looking for, you know, advocacy, maybe a recurring gift, maybe if they gave, you know, $500 the first gift, which is a big first gift, but this is where maybe, okay, we've done some work and they're giving significantly more, they might have capacity. And so this is this marketing funnel idea. And it's really interesting. Your guys' challenges are a little different than I did a similar session yesterday, but I'm also changing it based on, yes, some of the things I wanted to kind of pivot on. But one of the things I feel just overall when we talk 2019 marketing is we get, especially nonprofits and our nonprofit clients, we get too caught up in creative. And we worry about, you know, the perfect campaign message, or we get really caught up on the imagery, and we need to lean more towards traction and urgency, right? And marketing the actual event or the actual fundraising campaign or the actual appeal. And we're gonna definitely talk about like what is working the most there for us today. But I really just have this philosophy of traction over creative. And really, you know, if we're, like how many, even on the for-profit world, right, your friends, this great business idea, but it just doesn't go anywhere, right? Or a great nonprofit, but we're not pushing traction hard enough, we're not moving fast enough. And I think especially in just marketing overall in 2019, it's about speed, it's about testing things. You know, there's no one in this room, Community Boost included, that is producing enough what is ultimately written, video, and picture creative online, and just posting and repurposing. You know, there's a lot of noise, right? Memes and all these things, but we just have to keep pushing our messaging, right? So one of the, you know, but where do we even start, right? It can feel overwhelming. And this is just one framework. I'm a big framework type person, but especially when we, you know, we've had more board members in the sessions and where we're focused more on strategy at times. But I like this simple framework called the POST method. And the P is your people. Ultimately, you got to think about your audience and who you're marketing to, right? It's pretty standard, but really, I like to spend some time here and get specific, think about where is our audience, what they want. You have data here. You can look at things like Google Analytics. You can look at your actual past donor base and really think about what segments are there. You know, don't just say, oh, we have 1,000 donors. Say, okay, well, you know, here's our maybe baby boomer audience, and this is who this person is. And ultimately, you can start to do, there's all sorts of terms for this, but what's ultimately called persona development. We have a free template on our website, too, that we can send out. But I like to think of our personas and give them names and, you know, just on a one-pager, and really getting your team aligned on who we're marketing to. So for Community Boost, right, like our key persona is typically a director of marketing. And we actually have a name for this person on our one-pager, what her background's like, and then our second persona is more of the executive director, or like the leadership of an organization. And our tertiary persona is actually talent, who we're hiring. But with a lot of nonprofits, we go down that route. But really just thinking about your audience. Maybe it's just breaking it up into 3 key categories, but not all personas are weighted equal. Some are, there's priority to certain ones, right? And some of our organizations are kind of straddling this line where, okay, well, this is where our short-term funding is coming from, and that's okay. It's this older audience potentially, and we'll talk about it. They are online if we're talking digital. But then we want to start nurturing, this future transition of wealth and a younger audience too, or that type of thing. Or maybe there's some youth in our mission and that we're really trying to engage with, right? So really think about your audience, and then we move into the objectives. We're marketing for a reason. We're not just doing social media to do social media. And you want to take a step back and you want to put that on paper. And how I like to approach objective setting is typically through what we call OKRs. But there's all sorts of ways, stick with what works for your team, whatever that, it's just a vernacular, like a common language for your team. But at Community Boost, we typically do OKRs. So with the objective being, you set this objective, like this might.
What's an OKR?
It just stands for objective and key result. So John Dwyer, who I think was one of the initial investors in Google, I think he has like 15% of Google. Must be tough life, right? But yeah, he kind of really put that into that culture, and I think it actually came from another management guru at some point. But yeah, really define this, and this could be something like, we want to create a sustainable recurring giving campaign, or we want to, maybe you can even hit a certain revenue amount for the year. And then your objective typically has key results under it, and you just want these to be measurable, right? So say our objective is we really want to engage the millennial audience that we think is going to care about our mission, right? Or we want to build up a millennial community, for example. Then you would set these certain key results. So it might be, we want to grow our Instagram following to X. We want to, improve recurring giving by Y. You can have a lot of creative freedom here, but the one tip I like to recommend is you want some of these to be committal, we have to hit this, especially with revenue ones. And then you can have ones that are aspirational, and these are designed to stretch your organization and what's possible. But setting some sort of objective, and this could also just be as simple as revenue numbers, right? We brought in this much online last year and we want to grow by this %, and this is our objective. And then you might have key results to get there. Well, we got to say you're trying to raise $500,000 online for the year. Okay, great. Our key results is maybe, Q1 we want to do this, Q2 this, Q3, Q4, or if it's broken up by campaigns. We worked with this organization that builds schools in Pakistan. We'll tell you a little bit more about their Facebook results, but we set objectives around their Ramadan campaign and their back to school campaign and their year-end campaign. And then we set, to hit those numbers, then we set some engagement objectives around, we believe you have to earn the right to make a donation ask, right? So we'll also set objectives around engagement and sharing our impact and sharing our story throughout the year. So when we actually make an ask, people want to give, right? So set your objectives and just making them quantifiable. That's the biggest thing. And again, in 2019, it's about speed too. So it's okay to pivot and persevere off of these, right? So I like to see, okay, how are we doing? We persevere, is this going well? Or do we just need to really pivot and we got to change what is ultimately our strategy? So in strategy, this really breaks down to just scope, cost, time, and resources. And that's how I like to kind of think about these categories. Okay, these are objectives, and then how long do we want that to run? Are there any other kind of KPIs we want to monitor, key performance indicators? Costs, what do we think it's going to cost to actually make this happen financially? How long do we have to hit our objectives? and what kind of resources do we have, both in our internal marketing team, in our development team, in volunteers. If we need resources, we don't have them, okay, cool, let's go find some digital agencies. We can maybe enroll in some pro bono work, or whatever that is for your organization. Other parts of the strategy here that I like to talk about too, you can approach strategy a little different. And I like to also think a lot about the donor journey. And okay, so we have these objectives, and then also, what does our donor journey look like? And is there ways we can improve this, especially online, right? Okay, they're likely going to be coming in from Google or Facebook or an email, or they just, like, why? Like, how are they even finding us, right? And then they hit our page, and should we have some video stories? And then they donate, and like, what does our email follow-up look like? What does our stewardship look like? Right? Again, technology gives us this opportunity to create relationships that we never really could make so easily. So, you know, and whether we have some small organizations in here, we have some much bigger, but all of us could, in theory, pick up our phone when someone donates, say, like, you don't have to do this every time, but say like a special day, like Giving Tuesday, and you can just record a thank you video and just upload it on YouTube and then email it to them. And this is something that I used to have some close colleagues at Project Concern International, right? And we think of them as a very big organization, and they are, but heavily grant funded, don't have a ton on the marketing team as much. And they did that on Giving Tuesday, and they were getting feedback from people that had donated for so long, and they're just like, that is amazing. Like, no one has really done that for us before, and thank you. And we can use technology to take our stewardship to this whole new level. So thinking about that donor journey, and another kind of approach in thinking about the donor journey is I like to think about, this is actually from Airbnb. They, you know, back in the day when Airbnb was just getting started, they were big on customer feedback, and they would go into, they would actually use a camera and they'd say, oh, do you want us to take professional pictures for you, and it'll help you make more money? And they're like, yeah, but they're also doing it to get feedback. And then they started to think about, well, how do we make this ultimately, like, okay, is this a 5-star experience? Great. How do we make it a 6-star experience? How do we make it a 7? What's an 8? What's a 9? What's a 10? What's 11? And you can start to think about, how do we make our donor journey? Because I don't like to use the word competition in the nonprofit space, but you can really separate yourself with stewardship, and that ultimately can play into your strategy as well. And then we'll be talking tactics, right? So now that we know our audience, okay, where are they? What platforms are they on? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are they on all of it? Are they on Instagram? And we're hitting this audience. You know, are there certain websites they're on? Then setting our objective, okay, ultimately we want to achieve X in giving, or X in recurring giving, or maybe we just want to build our subscriber list and potential donor list, right? And then you set your strategies, and then we think of how we do that and these tactics. And I definitely want to talk about some of these tactics today. So we'll be talking about, you know, Google Ads and the Google Ad Grant, and how you can get 10 grand per month in free ads. And then we'll be talking Facebook and Instagram ads, because these things are working really well. And we're going to talk some email marketing, because I think somebody said email dinosaur, but email works and it's going to continue to work, and it's really important. So, you know, hopefully you're not feeling overwhelmed yet or anything like that. And I just wanted to share a little bit of a story before I kind of talk about a lot of the things we're seeing. And I recently read the Charity Waters founder, Scott Harrison. He wrote Thirst and just came out with it. And from a marketing perspective, someone who lives and breathes nonprofit marketing, like Charity Water, you know, is almost on this pedestal. And they just do so much wealth, and they blew up, you know, and they're 10, 15 million a year more. I don't even know how big Charity Water is now. It might be way bigger than that. And then Gene Case kind of to that point, and to some of the speakers' points, both yesterday's, I think her name was Amanda, she talked about like speed of change, and even today they spoke to, they wrote it down, but it was about like being bold. I think it was like bold, it was like respectfully impatient. I like love that point. And that when we talk marketing, this is what we need, and this is what we have to like enroll our board into also agreeing with, because our boards, they have those three responsibilities, right? Fiduciary, strategic, generative, and often marketing feels so fiduciary, and I get it, but I really think like it's also strategic, and long term we have to start honing our muscles as an organization to try these things faster. And so Jean Case, she came out with this book this month from the Case Foundation called Be Fearless, and she had these like 5 principles for breakthroughs and purpose in your organization. And so number 1 was make big bets in history, right? Like transformative change or historic change doesn't happen without like this commitment to really big bets. Number 2 is be bold and take risks. Number 3 was make failure matter, and learning those lessons and really making it a process. 4 is reaching beyond that bubble. That is where change happens at these intersections. And then 5 was let urgency conquer fear. And I think a lot of what happens on digital, or a lot that happens on social, there's just this fear of getting started for whatever reason. So I want to talk a little bit about just like where people's attention is at and how a nonprofit can utilize that. And as I was saying, it's online, it's on mobile, and we Google everything, right? Let's just talk about Google and what your nonprofit can do with it. Google now does over 3.5 billion searches every single day. Over 500 million of those searches are brand new. Over 15% of those searches are brand new every day, meaning somebody searches something that Google had never seen, which is kind of crazy. And Google's a verb, right? Like we confide in Google more than our priests, our spouses, definitely our parents, like Google things. And then when I say your nonprofit can get $10,000 in free Google ads every month, and this has been around for 15 years. Sorry, I just get tired because I've been beating this Google ad grant drum for so long, and it works. So the Google ad grant is one of the best ways to drive people to your site, right? So if we're trying to get people to our event in Balboa, well, imagine they search things to do in San Diego, and then we're on the first page of Google, and we have an ad about what's going on, and they click that, and we go to their website event page. That can happen, and you get $10,000 in free ads per month. For a lot of our partners, we send 5,000 visitors every month, but these are different types of visitors. These are often non-branded. When we look at a lot of analytics on a website for a nonprofit, it's often branded search. Like they already know you. That's why they're going to your website. So the Google ad grant, it can be really consistent, really powerful, and we're capitalizing on that search intent. When somebody searches something like how to support the migrant caravan, and your nonprofit might be taking action on that, and they click that and they go to your page about the work you're doing, that can be powerful. Or the first time we actually launched Google Ad Grants, it was for a small organization. I guess basically to tell you a little bit about Community Boost development is about 6-7 years ago, I was working at this digital agency in which we were serving the startup tech space. We were doing some pro bono work for nonprofits, and that was ultimately where my heart was at. And so I just quit but didn't leave, and we started Community Boost, and we wanted to do digital marketing for nonprofits, but ultimately to help. And obviously funding is typically the #1 problem. And we did everything. We did like website design and development. We did online fundraising campaign management. We tried everything. And then we were running a year-end campaign for a small organization called Wounded Warrior Homes. They do transitional housing for veterans who are battling post-traumatic stress. And they, to give you some context, the year before, in 2014, they did about $17,000 in online gifts from 233 donors. The following year, we launched their ad grant. And we launched it during year end, really just accidentally, because we try to believe and we want to be bold, we want to take risks, we want to try new things. And we launched this grant and we looked back on the data and we took online giving from $17,000 from 200 donors to $96,000 from 1,400 online donors. Because people would search things like donate to veterans, or how to help homeless veterans, or veteran homelessness statistics. And we would get them to site, and then we would nurture those leads, and ultimately they would donate as we share those stories. So that was our aha moment. And then we started doing a lot more Google Ad grants. We couldn't give it away, to be honest, in the beginning. We were just trying to do ad grants for as many nonprofits. Fast forward, we really niched into that, and we fast forwarded a couple years. That's kind of, the majority of our client roster started there. And we became one of the first ever Google Ad Grant certified partners, as the Google team really started to work with agencies to improve ad grants. So who has the ad grant? I'm just curious. Some of you? Cool. And if you ever want support in just kind of ramping or auditing or creating a strategy, please come to office hours as well. And those who don't have it, think about it, right? But we think about our persona, and we think about what they might be searching in Google, and then we can use this free $10,000 because it does have stipulations. And Google gives out this free 10K, but there are certain stipulations that can make it difficult, but it can be a really powerful tool. And overall, it's like anything. When we talk to nonprofits, we'll say, we're like, oh, well, ad grant didn't work for us. And we just challenge them. It's like, are you a practitioner in this? Have you just put in the work? Anything can be figured out. I'm terrible at basketball. I'm really bad. But a basketball is worth $1 billion to Michael Jordan, right? And ad grants, anyone here can learn it. When we got started, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kept tinkering, kept fighting, kept playing with it. And it can really be a strong traffic source. Yeah?
So I'm stuck on this Google Ad grant. So is that something that, as a nonprofit, you apply for and you get, and then we take it to you guys and the stipulations, you work those out, or is that something we have to do on our own?
Yeah, so I'll elaborate on a little bit. So basically, any approved 501c3, you can't be pending your 501c3 status, but if you're approved, you can get the ad grant. This isn't our typical grant, right? Grants usually take 6 months, 9 months. This usually can get approved in about a week or less. And now with that said, that doesn't mean you're just gonna get results or drive revenue right away, but you set up that foundation, and then again, you're really thinking about all those different keywords that people search, and then you start to bid on those. The biggest stipulation with the ad grant is this, what we call $2 cost per click stipulation. Because basically how Google makes money and is, say this is Google, right? We Google something and then we get our search results, and then there's these ads at the top of Google. That's how Google makes over $50 billion a year. And it's probably higher than that. It's 75% of the company's revenue is through those ads. But they give free ads to nonprofits through the ad grant, but we can't bid more than $2 per click. So a keyword like donate might typically cost $8 to $10 a click or more. But if we go after donate to veterans, or something like a different type of keyword that what is longer and maybe not as cost competitive, then you can still build up traction. We talk a lot about this 10K per month. It's really $329 per day. It's about a daily grant, but you can send 100 to 200 people a day to your website. And it's a lot of traffic, and it's new traffic. But it is about nurturing that traffic and making sure it gets to the page that matters. There's There's some other stipulations. We've done a lot of content on it, and maybe in one of our office hours we'll just do like an ad grant only session. But yeah, we do a lot of that, and we talk to the Google team a lot now, and it's powerful. To give you an example of an organization that just embraced technology and said, you know what, let's try it. There's this organization we met at the North County Philanthropic Council called Moms on Prairie International, faith-based organization, a great ministry, and they heard it. We told them about the ad grant, and they set it up about 6 years ago. They've been able to utilize over $1.5 million in free ad spend. They've sent over 900,000, almost 1 million visitors in the past 6 years from that ad grant to their website. It's over 80% of their website traffic, and it's just consistent. And so how they do their marketing funnel, right? They're ultimately wanting donors and people to support. They also do a lot of like prayer groups locally around the country. So we send all this traffic. So some of the traffic we might send would be something like prayers for my child, right? So we're just trying to reverse engineer their audience and what are they thinking about that resonates or that we can provide value on. I'm big on like value first marketing. So they'll search prayers for my child and they'll hit our website page and it'll be like your 31 days of scripture prayer. Or we tested all sorts of names for it, right? Like it's crazy how some things get downloaded more. And then they can put in their email, they can download it, right? So they go from visitor with, something that's, around like what they do a little bit, and then they convert, we get the email, and then we go through email drips, and we start to say, here's your 31 days of scripture prayer, would you also like this? And then, share a story about, the impact that they've been having. And then we might say, oh, do you want to get the book of our executive director wrote, and it's here, and here are the ratings. And we kind of drip that, and then eventually they might come to a prayer group, or they, become a donor. And then, they hopefully become like a recurring donor and grow in their capacity for the organization. But that has driven a tremendous amount of prayer group signups over the years of that 900,000 visitors. So that's one example of the ad grant. Yeah?
Do you think there's a growing audience of technophobes and conspiracy theorists who deliberately steer away from Google ad grants? Google ads, not Google ads.
Google ads.
The Google ads, like when they do a Google search and they get the ads on top. I'm usually pretty reluctant to click. So.
Yeah, we get that question a lot too. I'm sure there are. I'm an advertiser, so I don't really engage with a ton of ads.
It's an organization that something that I want to go to, then I probably would click on it. But I think I would be more likely to scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, we've definitely matured on that front of, this is an ad. I think that comes... Yeah.
I'm not sophisticated. It says ad.
Right.
That's why I scroll past it.
But if the copy is good, right, and if you're engaging in what that line is, people will still click. And they convert and they donate right away. There's organizations where we run ads, we ran a multi-channel campaign for the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund, and people would search just about giving to animal organizations, and then hit the ad and donate, first-time givers. So it's just a numbers game, right? It's like anything. But it's just a powerful channel because it's free. And when you're new to digital marketing, it's a great place to really sharpen that skill set and learn. And it's kind of like a sandbox, and it's okay to not do things perfectly. Also, where people's attention is at, and I would be remiss not to talk about this as far as tactics, right? This is ultimately where we can provide a ton of value. As you map these things out, here's where the tactics that we're most recommending for our customers is Facebook and Instagram ads, right? So let's just talk about Facebook and Instagram. There's tons of data on this, but you can also just look around this room. Everyone's here, we're on our phones. 50% of the time we're on our phone, we're on a social channel, which is often Facebook or Instagram, which is the same platform, same ownership. And we, in the end of 2017, we started testing a lot more. In 2018, we were seeing anywhere from a 3x return on ad spend upwards to a 20x return on ad spend on Facebook and Instagram. Incredibly powerful channel. And one of the things that we get a lot is like, well, like, it costs money, like we have to, and I'm like, yeah, it does. It's becoming a pay-to-play platform, but nowhere, like as a marketer, there has not been a better channel for hyper-targeting. Like, it is incredible, and it's incredibly underpriced. The hyper-targeting is amazing, and the creative is amazing, and it can work, right? Like, there's people who say, oh, like Facebook and Instagram ads, they don't really work for our organization. It's the same concept, though. It's like, yeah, maybe not every campaign would work, but if you get it right, it's incredibly scalable. So one of the ways we're using this is we will upload a list, like a supporter list. You can upload this securely into Facebook. And then from there, you can create a lookalike audience. So using Facebook's algorithm, you can create an audience that matches all these like characteristics of people that have supported, and you can market to it and reach new donors, right? And it's different than Google. Like, Google is this blue text ad, right? It's not the coolest ad. But nonprofits, we have these amazing stories to tell. And this is a channel where we can have video creative, we can have image creative, and sometimes we have, I think some of the challenges, well, we do so much, right? Like, well, if you have a video clip and you're running that ad, there's times we'll run video ads and build an audience of people that have engaged with that, and then we'll run our direct response ask ads after we kind of educate on the mission. Another example, so there's this organization we worked with at year-end. They build schools in Pakistan, really, really amazing cause. They have 12,000 all-female faculty, and they're doing some really amazing work. We spent about $9,800 in Facebook and Instagram ads in December, and people that either clicked, liked, commented, or shared those ads donated on their website in December over $215,000. So it was incredible ROI for them. And yeah, some of those donors, some of those were like repeat donors, and that's, in my opinion, okay, right? But then there was definitely a lot of new donors. And also, I like to break this mindset of like our donor. I don't believe in nonprofit. Like, we don't own our donors. We're always fighting and earning that right for them to give, and it's good to stay top of mind. And it's just a really effective way to do that. But I'm really, really, really bullish on Facebook and Instagram ads. It's, again, incredibly underpriced. It's going to cost a lot more in 24 to 36 months, I just believe, as like bigger brands and Coca-Cola and Toyota or whoever like starts to spend more on the platform. But it works really well for nonprofits because we can really tell that story, and just the creativity and the creative. It's really just how good is our hyper-targeting, how good are we marketing to the personas that we're trying to get at, which you can do so well on the platform. You can market on location, charitable giving tendencies, maybe they say you want to go more left-leaning based on, people are political that typically give to us and have these tendencies. Like, you can do all that. You can really tinker. Or the lookalike audience. Like, if you have a limited budget and you want to test, try the lookalike audience. You basically, again, upload a supporter list, say we want to go after a new audience that matches these tendencies, and then your creative is really just in their feed. Yeah.
So the platform that seems to be missing in my mind for the millennial target, which is what I think we're all looking at a little bit more
Sure.
than us old folks like me, is YouTube.
Yeah.
Does YouTube have a similar concept? Because that's
Yeah.
like, I mean, the video thing is insane.
Yeah.
Does it have a similar kind of mirror platform?
Yeah, so we can talk about YouTube. So YouTube is connected to Google. It's under the Google umbrella, and you can run that through the Google ad platform.
Oh, you can? Okay.
But it's pay to play. We don't have a free grant. So with Google, we'll just do this, right? Like, so if we're talking Google, for nonprofits, we have our ad grant, and we start here with our 10K, and let's spend as much of that as we can. It's free money, and we want to do it effectively, but it's our sandbox. And then you have paid Google ads. And so these are things like if we want to go after some of those really expensive keywords, but we know they have an ROI, right? Like if someone is searching donate to women empowerment causes or whatever really resonates, and yeah, we have to pay a couple bucks a click, but on average, you know, each visitor is worth $10. Let's scale that, right? Like that's a good scalable channel. Or with paid Google ads, we can also do display remarketing pretty effectively. So this is where, say somebody, we do this a lot where like somebody hits our donation page, but they didn't give. Well, then we can have a remarketing ad follow them around, like, you know, yeah, well, you see this, right? Like, cool, I'm shopping shoes but didn't buy, and all of a sudden, how's this shoe on CNN, right? That's remarketing. And yeah, yeah. So that's display, but we can't do that in the ad grant because it's not actual Google's inventory. But we can do that here. And then YouTube. The biggest thing I'm pretty bullish on for YouTube is what we call YouTube pre-roll ads. And so you can do this based on search intent, right? Like people might have searched something. Just making up a lot of search examples. Say they search something about human trafficking, right? Or like how to end human trafficking or human trafficking statistics. For whatever reason, they have this interest in it. But then on YouTube, when they're just on YouTube, pre-roll ad, meaning prior to them watching whatever they're watching, we can run a video. The only thing with YouTube is you want to make sure you have really strong calls to action in the end of your video. But it can be great brand awareness.
And these are the ones that start and you have to watch the first 3 seconds, but then you can skip. Is that them?
That can be that. But people are like watching them, in my opinion, more. And especially as we start to like YouTube on our TV and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of YouTube. But you can
also the ones that appear because there's like usually one or two, like when you do like a YouTube search, and there's like one or two over on the right that are kind of the sponsored videos, kind of like your Google ads. You know, they're kind of up there. They may have nothing to do, but it might have been something I searched. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just to answer that too, it's like that isn't technically a pre-roll. It's just another form of YouTube ad. That would be more for promoting your video if you had one.
Right.
Versus this would be more just like we already know someone had searched something earlier in the day and they're watching their like unboxing video later. And it's like, okay, right before that, we can give them a quick call to action of our brand.
And one last technical question. So when these things are following you around like a lost puppy, are they following you around on the ISP that is the computer you're on? Or are they following you around because they actually know you when you're jumping between, and I probably don't want to know this answer, between your phone and your laptop and your desktop and everything else? Do you know?
And it depends. On Google, it's typically often ISP, like P, the device. You've been cookied on that device. With Facebook, it can be connected, and that's more on the individual user basis. But yeah, so Google is powerful. Yeah, YouTube falls into that framework. But yeah, and again, Facebook and Instagram ads are working really well, and we do a lot of remarketing with that with Facebook too. So where you can use it well to also increase donor lifetime value and just staying top of mind, running campaigns. But the thing I wanted to bring up here too is also just on the culture of the organization, right? Like, I'm sharing with you that, and you can test Facebook and Instagram ads cheaply, $5 a day. And, or like a couple $100, you'll really shake out the economics and if it works, right? Or this Google ad grant. But we still, it's like, we don't get into action. And why, right? And that's overall, like, I'm just trying to inspire you guys, like, it can be figured out. You can take action, you can move faster. And even on social media, we're just not producing enough again, picture, written, video, and why, right? Like we have this fear, and I think we often get caught up in, this creative needs to almost be perfect in a way, or for whatever that reason is. But I really encourage organizations to approach it about like documenting your journey. And I brought this up yesterday, but like how amazing would it have been if we could watch videos of, Dr. Martin Luther King, like prior to a march, or like talking with his team, and people want to see that, right? Or like imagine Jeff Bezos like packing the first boxes of Amazon, and people care about your journey. And even on a more real example, his name is Eric. He runs this organization called Urban Street Angels, and I met him a very long time ago. We don't talk often. But it's been really cool to just witness when he launched his organization and just the little things he's been doing to just post on social and tell that story. And then, recently they, opened a new homeless shelter, and that's really cool. And you kind of felt connected to that journey. And that's kind of what I mean. And you can really make your audience the heroes, and you can have more direct stewardship than you really thought possible. But someone on your team has got to believe in that, and then believe in documenting the journey and just figuring it out. And we have to figure these tools out. And I could go on a rant about this, but we're, in my opinion, giving one of the most important long-term strategic initiatives often still to interns. And that is what it is. And I'm not saying anything bad about interns. But just because the fact of like this young person used Instagram to try and, look cool to girls, that doesn't mean that they can actually like market your organization. And we have to start having a conversation about putting resources into these things and doing them well. And it leads me to, like, when it comes to marketing, it's this balance between brand and development and ROI, right? And often we think of marketing, okay, Cameron, like, maybe, we're going to spend $1,000 here. What are we going to get back immediately? And I'm like, okay, well, you want to take brand cold people and immediately push them here through this funnel. And really trying to think about digital as like, how do we build relationships? Because it takes time. And a lot of the social media work is brand. It's building brand, it's sharing your impact, it's stories of impact, it's repurposing that thing. 2019 is about repurposing content. And just approaching it with speed. I promise you, and I'll see organizations where they might chastise a more junior team member because an email went out and there was, a grammar typo error in paragraph 3, and this email probably only had a 15% open rate, and now we're just not sending as many emails, And I think there's an opportunity to celebrate your team that is like taking these chances, and not every channel might work out for the cause, but the organizations that might have been testing Snapchat for whatever reason 2 years ago, okay, Snapchat's not that used right now, right? That's okay, but those same skill sets help that person crush Instagram stories, and Instagram stories are incredibly highly engaged, and they're getting tons of views, and they sharpen that skill set, right? And they can apply that to this channel that's actually working. So just celebrating your team. If somebody on your team has a passion for this, try and fuel that and encourage them to take shots and encourage them to maybe shoot a video at an event. And, we're shooting this, and I don't know if we're going to do anything with it, but why not? Like documenting the journey. Okay, and I think the last story, I don't know why I wanted to tell this. I didn't tell this in the last session, but 6 years ago or so, in the early days of Community Boost, I was kind of frustrated. I felt like no one at eBoost, which is the company we were incubated out of, really even cared about like the work we were doing for nonprofits. And I was complaining to one of my really close best friends. His name was Matt. And all of a sudden, he just like looked at me and he was, Cameron, like, no one gives a shit because you don't inspire us to care. And yeah, like it hurt, right? I was really upset. But it was honestly some of the best advice I had ever gotten. And like we have to share that story. We have to be proud of the work we're doing. And it's okay if somebody doesn't care and we're like putting that out there. Who cares, you know? Or if somebody gives us one bad comment, that's okay, you know? And I just want to encourage that because we can all just keep sharing that, and that's how you get better. And social media is a cool way to do that. And don't focus on likes and all this engagement. Just focus on getting it out there, consistency, and it'll start to build. And I definitely want to get to Q&A. The only other thing I just wanted to make sure was emphasized. I know we talked a lot about these tactics of Google and Facebook and Instagram ads. Those are really, really, you know, there's the ones that we're doing the most of because they're working really well. But I do want to make sure email is not underemphasized. It's still working. And so as we talk 2019 trends, like where's it going? It's about segmenting your list as much as you can and putting in some time, because you know, when I get these emails from nonprofits where it's like, here's our newsletter, here's the 40 things we did or have coming up, that's just not how email's working anymore. Really have like one clear call to action, and that works better. And it's all about the subject line. Subject line is king. And you can, most email platforms like MailChimp, you can A/B test your subject line. And so what's an A/B test mean if you're not doing this? One, I'm all about A/B testing. So how we get good at anything is we're always A/B testing everything. So when we run ads, we're running one ad and we're running another, and whichever one's performing better, that becomes the winner, and then we test something new. And that's how you incrementally improve online. So with our emails, when we do an email send, say we're going to email 2,000 people, well, we're going to go, you know, we're going to have subject line A and subject line B. And then you can send both to 20% of the list, and then whichever one wins, the 80% gets that. Because if one gets opened at 15% and the other gets opened at 25%, you're going to just get a lot more opens. And email is all about just getting it open, and it's subject line that does that. And then from there, you just want a clean design and a clear call to action. And often we're just not sending enough. And you can send, and people, we get really caught up in unsubscribes. But I promise you, it's, you know, if you're running things like the ad grant and you're consistently trying to build your list, it's about just continuing to build it and use email to send as much as you can. It definitely works. When you look at like I like this 2018 giving report, and they talk a lot about baby boomers, they talk about Gen Xers, and they talk about millennials. It's how I look at the data typically. You know, millennials and boomer or Gen Xers are, they say, most inspired by social media now. Which plays into the Facebook and Instagram story to actually be in front of them when they're on social media. Baby boomers are inspired by social media, but they actually are, you know, most inspired to give by email still. And then email is like number 2 or 3 for all of them. So I know that was a lot, but you know, if I had to wrap that up before we go to Q&A, it's, you know, embrace tech, celebrate speed, celebrate, you know, things even not working, but the fact that you're trying. Post more written, video, and pictures.
Page, like it's like, why are you on the board and on Facebook if you're not liking our page? But then when you see our posts, not liking them but sharing them. Like I was always trying to get people to share instead of like, am I getting any traction on that, or is that just not a waste of time?
Yeah, you were definitely right about the shares, especially if it was like maybe a year or 2 ago. They're both important, but comments are actually one of the bigger factors in the algorithm now. the algorithm changes, and it's about long comments. That really helps. I mean, a few sentences, right? As opposed to just like, nice. So.
I mean, we're going to tell our board what the call to action is.
Yeah.
I want to tell them. I want
long
2
comments.
sentences comment on every single post, or you're off the board.
I like that.
So comments, then shares, then likes.
Yeah, but do them all, you know?
Yeah, no, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, and with that, like Facebook's really looking for social proof, whether you're just doing normal posting or even if they're ads, like they always favor when more people like and comment and share, and it's because other people see it and it automatically has more meaning to them because their friends already like it.
Self-fulfilling.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Facebook Live is getting a lot of exposure now, which can be challenging to do at an event. But if you're running an event and it kind of makes sense, you can always test it, or even going live briefly and just saying something, you'll get a lot of exposure.
Like, oh my God, and then it cuts off, and they're like,
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to go to the other side.
Yeah.
You know, in the world of digital hacking and all of these things, are there things we ought to be aware of when we're using these, digital paths? How do we make sure? Because it can go awfully bad, right? If we do it right, if our site gets hacked or something like that, we can have more. It can go much worse than we can gain in positive for there. So I'm sort of looking for some guidance.
So
on how to protect ourselves as we're going out there and being more and more online. Things that we should be thinking of. Have you gotten?
Yeah. Well, if it's in regards to safety and hacking, that to put on my IT hat, just very long and complicated passwords is probably the #1 thing you could do to protect yourself on everything.
Stay off Wix. Wix just in terms like Wix sites, they're cheap and easy, but they're not super secure. But overall, I mean, just talking about developer, probably the best in terms of security. There's not really a raised risk or anything like that with security in terms of these platforms, unless like someone were to get access to your passwords.
Yeah.
Whoa, so if you're planning to move your website to Wix, I'm hearing a don't do that coming out of your mouth.
I mean, my personal preference is no, and I'm pretty close with a lot.
We can talk to you about it after.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. Yep.
A couple of questions in one.
Sure.
One is about time and how much to spend on this, because I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Our nonprofit is we have 2 staff members.
Yeah.
One of them and the other one is our ED. And so we try our hardest to do marketing. We have a twice monthly newsletter, and then the 2 of us take turns sending out making posts on social media. And we have all of our social media is linked. I kind of fight that because I feel like it's not good to have the exact same post show up on each social media account. But then again, it comes down to time, and we don't really have the time to keep making new creative posts on each social media account.
Get your board to do it.
Coming into that, is Twitter still a thing? Because I don't remember you mentioning Twitter.
Yep.
So is that even useful? So that's my problem. Is the linking all of those media accounts is an okay thing? Is Twitter still a thing? And how do you manage? Is there like a formula of how much time should be spent on marketing, or just like how do you handle it?
Yeah, that was a great question. I think we had some input. You can have your board get involved. But, well, I'll try and address all those pieces directly. As far as different channels, I know I didn't talk about all the channels, but each channel could be its own session. Long term, as you grow or maybe get more resources, it is better to cater the messaging to each channel as opposed to it being, this one post on all, because they're kind of different experiences, right? Like Twitter is technically really the only current social media channel. It's the only one where people actually conversate. Everything else is almost just like pushing content. So that's a different message than if you're posting on Instagram or LinkedIn. As far as resources, I think at the end of the day, you're always going to have to just prioritize. I don't necessarily think there's a set formula, but that's kind of where I get into that thesis of just documenting the journey, right? And when we can operate out of that realm, it's more of like we're doing our normal thing, like we're helping people out, and we just want to like create that content, as opposed to, all right, I'm gonna have this perfect message and this perfect image, and it's gonna have a donation ask or the perfect email newsletter. And so you just have to kind of do what you can, right? I mean, you're a smaller organization too. Like some of your priorities might be like, all right, we just need to find some bigger funders and do some real like sales and development work, right? And there's nothing wrong with that either. And I know I kind of hit on the intern thing a little bit, but it's okay. Like if there is somebody that like a passionate volunteer who wants to get involved or help create content, that's okay. It was more of like, that was more of a point of, some organizations with more resources think that this is okay to only do that, where this is going to become one of the main communication channels more and more year by year. So if you are more resource strapped, you can think about your persona, and if there's a key channel that they're really on, you can also just spend more energy there too, as opposed to trying to do everything blanketed on everything. Can like do maybe one channel really well, right? I hope that helps. But
Yeah, thank you.
any more questions? Everyone's ready for happy hour? Yeah.
I just wanted to talk a little bit more about conversion.
Mm-hmm.
We did our first crowdfunding campaign at the end of last year. It wasn't super successful, but we had, the shares and the comments and the likes, on all of our different platforms. And, you go to your email campaign and you see that X number of people, clicked on the link and went to watch the video. And so, but then there wasn't a lot of conversion. So then my question is, did we just have bad content, or did we need more content, or how do I do a better job?
Yeah, great question. So just dig in a little bit more. Like, what was your fundraising goal? What did you guys end up raising, if you don't mind?
Our fundraising goal was $10,000 and we raised $5,000.
Okay.
Through this particular thing.
Cool. Well, overall, it's good you're starting, right? And you still raise $5,000. You can always talk about goal setting too. Like when it comes to crowdfunding, if it's a public-facing goal, I like to set a goal we're going to hit, because when we talk crowdfunding, you usually want to hit about 30% of your goal in the first 48 hours, because you want to show initial success. And then from there, because people want to donate to something that they think is going to be successful. And so then from there, you can almost like have in preparation, like, yeah, we're very likely to hit this goal, and then we can extend as we want. But as far as, it sounds like the engagement was decent. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to dig in more, but we can certainly kind of run in office hours and look at it more, or it might have just been a numbers thing, right? Like getting enough people to it. But we talk a lot of online fundraising, but especially when it comes to crowdfunding, there's a lot of offline, like gray work, like pre-wiring you want to do, if possible. Like if you want to set up a match, we might want to, cool, we have this match here. Was it like a year-end campaign, or?
Well, it was run simultaneously, so that was probably part of the problem. But I think, the crowdfunding campaign is one aspect, but then I think like the general question of throughout the year, how to make those conversions happen. Like, even if, like, sometimes it's connected to a fundraising campaign and sometimes it's not. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so when you're saying conversion, you're meaning a donation. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just making sure. Yeah.
Registering for a program or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it just, I'd have to dig in a little bit deeper, I think, like to your cause and to the actual creative, and to that consistency, because I would think of your audience in multiple ways, right? Like you have cold visitors who are like brand new to the mission, right? And sometimes that can take 5 to 7 touch points before they donate. And then you have warm, maybe they know you already and maybe have come to the event, but they never really donated. And then you have hot, like recurring gifts, people have given in the past and that type of thing. So you want to really think about like what you're going after and how and what kind of traffic you're there. But yeah, I mean, if you want to swing by office hours or something like that, we could just like kind of post-mortem it. And I'm big on that. Like whenever we run a campaign, go through this post-mortem exercise a little bit. And just, you know, talk about like what went well, what were our lessons learned, and, you know, what would it have taken for us to succeed, and like why did some of these things happen and didn't hit our goal. And then you just got to improve, you know, but I don't know if that helps. But yeah, come by. I mean, our team would love to just like look at it more. Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and let everyone break. I'll be here if anyone else wants to ask questions, but